Welcome back to the Lift Free and Diet Hard podcast. I'm your host, Andrew Coates. Join me along with industry leaders and friends on a quest to get more people through the gym door and eating and living healthier. Join me where evidence meets empathy while rejecting fitness industry fads and extremism. Let's begin. The legendary KSD, better known, or actually not better known as Krista Scott-Dixon, but often abbreviated to KSD. It's great to have you back. For the uninitiated, which is criminal to me, you probably rose to the greatest prominence in the industry as the director of curriculum for precision nutrition, or as I like to say it, one of the key architects to building one of the biggest, most legacy brands in our space. You have continue to work with great industry brands like Girls Gone Strong, building the elite. You have a PhD from York University. You presented at my 2023 Evolve Strength Business and Coaching Conference. You're the author of Why Me Want Eat, Fixing Your Food Fucked Upitude. And there's a lot more, but that's a good start. Great to have you back.
Thank you. Great to be back. I can't believe it's been 2023 since we last hung out. That's actually a bit hard to believe.
Oh, you were a great hit at the event. There was a lot of people in the audience who attended specifically because you were there, and you don't speak at a lot of things, so it was an honor to actually get you there.
Yeah, well, I think the last time you invited me, I was actually deep in writing my next book, which I'm sure we'll talk about. But yeah, you reached me in kind of like the writer's pile of paper on the floor, messy hair, conspiracy guy, meme sort of state. Not quite, not actually chain smoking, but like that kind of vibe. So yeah, I wasn't able to do the other one, but yeah, I mean, it's always a good time to bring these kinds of topics to your audience. So I'm glad that I could be here.
It's another venue for it, right? And yes, as you noted, I did invite you back for 2024. You were a big hit, but you were interested that you came back around and be like, I had to have a come to Jesus moment, was your exact wording.
That's right.
And I think we may get into some stuff about your time and your boundaries on this, but I pulled a quote that I think is a great representation of the bullshit that we are dealing with. Quote, Sciencey protocols are a grift, all caps. Most people don't need overly complex, detailed, or precise plans. Instead, they need to do fundamental behaviors consistently and well. I give you permission to stop giving a shit about every for sale protocol or product endorsement. Simplicity is boring and unsexy. Living small and spending less is boring and unsexy. Talk to me about this.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a lot to unpack there, right? And I think that since I wrote that, I think it's become even more relevant and obvious to people, like really no matter what your political and economic inclination. I think the kind of cost of living and watching billionaires be billionaires and do billionaire things has, I think, made us, like a lot of us, think about how our time and attention and insecurities are kind of like monetized, and how corporations basically kind of go around and like hoover up or vacuum up like all of our insecurities and turn them into products. And I think of it particularly in the menopause space recently, most recently with my work with Girls Gone Strong. All of a sudden, everyone's discovered menopause. And now it's like awesome, another space in which we can sell people a bunch of products. But there's obviously, I mean, you and I have been in this space for a long, long time. We know that there's all kinds of opportunities to make money off people. And I think there's a very specific kind of grift that's been going on in the last while, which is what I would call like the science-based grift or the pseudoscience grift, which is kind of stuff that either is based in like real research, but then like amplified and taken to a kind of extreme, or taken into a product that really, has no business being a product, or it's actually based on pseudoscience, which is, made up things about the world. And I've seen this happen more and more. But the tricky thing is for the average person, like it feels like this is something I should be doing. And now it's like, oh my God, like I didn't know that I was missing all these micronutrients, or that I should be, I mean, the latest one is like what, timing your caffeine intake. Who does this, right? Or like particular supplements for different health conditions. I mean, that's been around for a while. But just like the emergence of this concept of like living your life according to so-called protocols, or that there's some kind of specialization that you really need, and conveniently it comes in a product. And I think for the vast majority of humans, like I always tell my clients this, unless you're making money from your body, and I mean a lot of money, right? Like millions, unless you're like $1 million body, in which case you probably also have a whole staff of people taking care of everything. Unless you're making money from your body, in which case like a teeny advantage would matter, you really don't need to think about and worry about this kind of stuff. And even if you are someone who is a top athlete or a top performer, like I'm sure we'll get into this, but I work with a lot of people trying to get into elite military, tactical, first responder kinds of jobs. Well, I mean, they struggle with the basics, right? So these are people in like peak physical condition. We're still getting them to drink water and get some sleep and eat a vegetable and eat some protein. And so like I really have not met the client yet for whom these super sciencey protocols were, first of all, even like based in evidence. And second, were even really particularly important. So, to circle back around, I think for the average person, there's like, listen, I put collagen in my coffee. My biologist friend, Helen Coleus, tells me it's absolute crap. I fully embrace that. It's just a thing that dissolves in my coffee. It's one of my last remaining vices. So you know what? We all have those. But, for most people, we really need to be getting the basics in place consistently and just like leaving aside the sciencey stuff.
I'll give a similar example. Like I'm very cognizant of the fact that there are certain things that I will spend money on that, maybe they make me feel better. Maybe it's like placebo.
Yeah.
I, for example, like, I'll even say the brand, I'm not sponsored by them, but Element. I like those like sodium things, and I drink it before I have anything else in the morning. And I was dealing with brain fog for a while, and I actually suspect it's it's post nasty COVID in late 2020, but it may also have something to do with thyroid. But I'm thinking, let's try this. And guess what? Maybe it's just hydrating better when I first wake up, which also gets into that like water and caffeine timing thing, which is also partially bullshit. But you know what? I feel better. Maybe it's placebo, and I'm willing to do it knowing full well that it's not like as sciencey as people say, because you alluded to the converse. It's not like we have to give up joys or things we actually like, and we're comfortable spending money on them. There's no problem with it. We feel like it helps us, but we also kind of know that like, okay, this is like partially bullshit. Like I don't buy into bulletproof coffee, but guess what? If someone likes their bulletproof coffee, I'm not going to stand in their way, right? A quick sponsor break for my current aspiring coach listeners. This episode is brought to you by Train Heroic. If you know me, you know I only work with sponsors I use personally and where I know the people behind the product. Train Heroic is the best online coaching software in the industry. Not only is it a great platform for one-on-one coaching, it's fantastic for group coaching and selling standalone programs. Train Heroic is used by some of my trusted friends, so I switched my online group program here, and my members love it, raving about its ease of use. Having a dedicated app means far greater reliability for my clients and has been by far my best experience with any online coaching software. Train Heroic is a proven and stable industry leader, meaning it isn't going to suddenly disappear. One of the biggest risks in choosing an online coaching software. When you start a free trial today, you'll get 90 days free to experience why I love and trust this platform. You'll get full support from their team, who've been a joy for me to work with. And I trust Train Heroic and the people behind it. Here's how to activate your free 90-day trial. It's 2 important steps. Number 1, go to www.trainheroic.com/liftfree. Step 2, reply to the email you get. It should be trials@trainheroic.com, and let them know I sent you, or go to the links in the show notes.
Exactly. I mean, like, who are we to steal your joy, right? And to get in the way of your diarrhea after consuming God knows how much fat in your coffee. Right? But it's so true. And I think in 2025 too, like all of us are just trying to extract some last shred of joy from the universe, right? And so I think we want to be very nuanced in our conversations, like, and to tell our clients, look, you don't need to be spending money on this, and you don't need to be worrying about this. But if spending money on this and thinking about this brings you joy, if it brings you energy, if it's something that like, it's like wearing your lucky hat to the gym kind of thing, right? If you feel like it gives you a little bump in well-being in some way, even if you kind of know, like, even if you're aware that it's magical thinking, the goal is to do it intentionally and not to spiral down into a kind of over complexifying your life, or spending God knows how much money on stuff, or creating a whole new source of anxiety for yourself. Like there's enough sources of anxiety in the world right now. You don't need to be, literally lying awake in bed at night worrying that you haven't optimized your sleep protocol or something like that, right? So it's kind of like, what's the hill we all want to die on, right? What can we choose with intention to say, look, I know this is irrational. It brings me joy, it gives me energy. It's like, whatever. I'd like my lucky cup, my lucky socks. And then what could I give up to kind of simplify my life? Because I think it's really hard to live a simple life in 2025. But ultimately, if you look in the bucket of a simple life, all of the things that are in there are the basis of good health, right? Get outside, get some fresh air, watch the birds, have good relationships, eat a vegetable, drink some water. Like everything that's in the bucket of a simple life is what's required. So I think, you know, allowing people to, or sort of nudging people in that direction and saying, it's actually perfectly okay to just do a lot of simple things and you really don't need more. I think it's just kind of a relief for people, you know?
And it's why I like hovered on the word that permission in the opening statement, right? Giving people permission. You conjured two things that I want to say really quickly. First one, I have scheduled Dr. Ben Rain. I think I'm spelling it right. I was saying it right. And he recently wrote a book called Why Brains Need Friends. And that gets really heavily into the social connection science and how positive that is. We've kind of known that for a while. And if we think about these, and I love the fact you chose the word protocols, Google books and protocol, and I think people will kind of come up with something very interesting that I don't want to say any names, but it'll bubble to the surface. A good example of all the shit that we're talking about. But if these protocols compete with your time to actually be social, and we know that more than ever, people are less and less social. And as we get older, there's a curve of the amount of time we tend to spend with certain people, our family, friends, et cetera. That's just a natural progression of life. But if this stuff is eating away at our time to be social because we're fixated on these protocols, well, God, that's a net negative on its own. And two is sleep. And I think it was Dr. Andy Galpin, I must have said somewhere, and it just really stuck with me. These optimized sleep protocols, at a certain point, they become so fragile with the number of things you're doing that if you step outside of your environment, I travel a fair bit. So all of a sudden I'm in a hotel room. And if I don't have all of this elaborate shit in my cooling mattress, I don't do any of that bullshit, then it's going to wreck my sleep because I have anxiety about the perfect sleep. I bring a little sleep mask. That's pretty much it. And I just make sure the curtains are pretty blacked out. I'm good to go. That's it for me.
Yeah, I mean, that's such a great example of the sleep thing too. So I'm going to say a couple of things. One is that also as a middle-aged woman, I now no longer subscribe to pretty much anything that like an affluent dude has come up with because it's my prediction is very likely you're probably not the primary caregiver for children and or aging parents. You probably have someone cleaning your house. Like you probably have someone attending to a lot of these other tasks of life that make it possible for you to have perfect sleep protocol. Whereas for a lot of my clients, whether they're busy parents or they're working people who are working shift work, or they're, women at midlife who are struggling with insomnia, like the concept of a perfect sleep protocol is just such an insane luxury to even consider. Like it's crazy to even contemplate, right? And so like I've started to become really skeptical about like, not to knock people for having any kind of life, but the question is, can you give me meaningful advice? And I've started to kind of think about who am I taking advice from? And if you're not scrubbing your own toilets, like if your life doesn't involve just sort of regular everyday things that interfere with perfection and protocols, I don't know how useful this advice is. So that's kind of like piece number one. But piece number two is like, I kind of refuse to believe in this idea of fragile humanity. Like we are really the cockroaches in terms of a species. We can live almost anywhere. We can eat almost anything. We can completely like wander into some, even like across, early humans, like early humans were mating and reproducing. Like humans are just really great at surviving in all kinds of ways. And so I'm not particularly a fan of this fragile human idea, like, oh my God, if I get one lumen of light exposure, like my sleep is shot. My God, like people can sleep on planes. Like, like we slept on the freaking ground with spiders crawling in our mouths for God knows how much of our human history, right? So it's just wild to me that we've gotten to this point where we're like weird, delicate little Pomeranian dogs that can only have special food, you know? Um, so like I try to subscribe to a more resilient human hypothesis and cultivate behaviors and a mindset that make me feel more adaptable and flexible. So like, yeah, you know what? I slept like crap last night. I'm okay though, and it's not an ideal, but like I'm not going to die of cancer because I had a bad night of sleep. Do you know what I mean?
All right. So now you give me two more things. We keep playing tennis with this. One, describe if someone really wants to take what you said about the surviving rough conditions and you really want to read a great book, Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. Everybody should
Classic.
read it.
Yeah.
One of the best. There's so much more depth than just like surviving rough conditions, but it's the worst of humanity and one man's account of it. So the second thought is, I have, for everything I try to do with my sleep, I have one thing, and for the audio listeners, I apologize. I'm moving my camera. The video people will see. Sleeping next to me is a 14-year-old fluff ball. That's my cat Ozzy over there in the chair. But he'll curl up with me, but he'll actually move around at different points of the night. So he wakes me up a few times a night. Guess what? I wouldn't have it any other way, but that actually is my biggest sleep disruptor, is in his own glorious sleep ritual right now. So anyway, I definitely want to go into a bit about performance psychology, because you've mentioned how you've been working with tactical professionals. Is this only important for the military first responder type, or can the everyday person take lessons from, it's a very broad umbrella, but performance psychology?
Yeah, absolutely. I think so. And, to be clear, it's funny because my background is obviously not in like high-end performance. Like I was never a Navy SEAL. Like if you've seen me in person, I am a short, middle-aged woman, right, with anxiety. And like I was the like, always picked last for sports teams when I was a kid and that kind of stuff. I had glasses and braces. And so like it's a little bit crazy that here I am talking about performance psychology. But the domain of performance psychology that I specialize in is kind of like the less the less sexy one, I guess, the less glamorous one. So it's not the mental toughness one. It's not the David Goggins, beat the weakness out of you kind of. Because I mean, that's at some point you just have to like, sack up and get on with it, right? But my specialty is when things fall apart. So typically, let's say we have someone going through selection. When it often falls apart is not during a difficult event. So not when you're running or doing a million pull-ups or, I don't know, getting rolled in the mud or something like that. A lot of the time where people fall apart is the quiet moments between. So you're sitting in the barracks, you're sitting in your tent, you're sitting at the sidelines, or, you're going home somewhere on a bus or whatever it is. That's when you crack and fall apart, when you're quiet and you're alone with yourself and your thoughts and your feelings. And that's where I slide in. So my performance psychology is all of the other messy, shameful, chaotic elements of performance, anxiety, shame, grief, after, like, for example, let's say you're a top athlete, all of a sudden you have a career-ending injury. Boom, literally in a millisecond, something tears and your career is done. Oh my God, who are you? What just happened? How do you mourn the loss of yourself? And that might seem like a lot of woo-woo stuff, but it's actually huge in performance, because that's the stuff that a lot of time is really going to get you. And so, it's really funny. So here I am, this little woman talking to these big bad, mostly dudes, tatted up and whatever, about stuff like compassion and shame and loving yourself and, working through difficult feelings, working through trauma, like all of the squishy, all of the squishy stuff that doesn't make it to Instagram, but is actually for most people the make or break. It's not mental toughness. I think a lot of us can just kind of, it's like diets, like if people can gut it out and get through a hard diet for a day, a few days, maybe a few weeks. But then other stuff starts creeping in, right? So I'm the specialist in what creeps in. Let's just say it that way.
I mean, as you're describing all that, I'm thinking of the everyday person, but who has a stressful life, stressful job,
Yes.
maybe caretaking, maybe there's, people in the family that's sick, dealing with kids, the chaos of all that. But to me, I think it's probably that like those moments where there's a break in the action that it all catches up with you. It's
Yes.
physically, I think it's more anecdotal, but it seems like that's when people get sick. But I guess that's probably also, it sounds like a perfect metaphor. Is that what you've seen in practice for the everyday person too?
Yes, and thanks for bringing me back to the everyday person because I don't think I fully answered your question.
Mm.
Like the things that really define performance psychology are the things of everyday humaning, right? Being an alive human. So if you're just a regular schmo going to work, it might be an identity crisis. Like you're sitting in your cubicle and you're selling insurance and you're just like, what the actual F am I doing here? Who am I? Who have I become? Right. So it could be a midlife crisis. It could be I've become a parent and I've lost myself. And now my nutrition consists of, picking the half-eaten chicken nuggets off my kid's plate. And I'm like, who am I anymore? Right. So it's identity issues. It's doubt, right? Oh, I want to go for a promotion at work and I feel like an imposter. It's imposter syndrome. When it comes to health and fitness, it's like can't get out of my head, right? Or I go into the gym and I feel like I'm never good enough, or I'm looking in the mirror and I never feel good enough. I have very high standards, whatever those are, and I feel like I never measure up to that. So I think it's the very relatable human concerns that kind of get us, where it's, whether that's self-doubt, again, imposter syndrome, just everyday garden variety anxiety, worries, overwhelm, having a lot of stuff coming at you, kids, tasks, being alive in modern life, and just trying to find a pathway through that where you're doing the tasks of basic self-care and basic health. It's all kind of the very relatable things. And, for example, like a lot of first responders and tactical, especially, have terrible eating habits because let's say you're a wildland firefighter, you're up north in a camp, like the food is whatever comes in a plastic bucket or whatever, right? And maybe you're out on the line for 12 hours. Maybe you drink sporadically, actually, I mean water, but like also there's, then there's substance use, there's alcohol, like all of that stuff. Um, so, these things are very real life kinds of questions, and they're not necessarily about being the best. It's about who are you when things feel like they're worst. That's I think something that almost everyone has some experience with. Even stuff like boredom. Like we see war movies like, oh, this is so exciting, but like what they don't capture about most of like, military first responder tactical life is it's really like a lot of boring stuff. It's waiting, it's paperwork, it's menial tasks, and it's keeping your head together through that too. And so for regular people, that's the grind. It's getting up every day and doing the things and putting your kids' socks on and fixing the 3,000th lunch that day. It's quite similar, really.
Everything you described, let's use the word maybe insufficiency, feelings of imposter syndrome. I picture, and in knowing people, when you look around at social media, or even some of the closest people in my world, they put on a great show. I think they kind of have to for their kids, the way they show up in the world. But it can be very easy for someone to interpret that as all these internal feelings of insufficiency and challenge, but I'm the only one dealing with this. Everybody else is picture
Yeah.
perfect. Everybody else makes a great show of it. And I know social media absolutely magnifies that, but how dangerous and how isolating do you think that is? And how badly does it affect people where they feel like they're the only one that's struggling?
Yeah. I actually call this the everyone else problem, which is that you believe that like everyone else is better than you, not struggling, whatever you think about, or is making faster progress, right? So there's this magical, mythical everyone else that's somehow doing better than you, or living better than you, or is happier than you, or is whatever than you. And we know from research that one of the antidotes to that is to go back to our thing about social connection, engaging in real life. Because the more you see real life people, the more you are able to, it's almost like developing models of the world. right? And so if you're sitting and we're just behind a screen, my view of your world is like, oh, Andrew seems like a really intellectual kind of guy. Look at, he's got all these books on his shelf, and he's got a really nice beard. Man, he must be living his best life, right? Because I could see like a two-dimensional image of you, and that's all I get. Whereas if we hung out like 24/7 in real life, if we were married, like I would know all of the good and messy dimensions of you, and you would become much more three-dimensional to me. And so what tends to happen is a lot of people form their ideas about fitness and nutrition and health, not from other people that they interact with, but from what they see online, which is a very two-dimensional, static kind of image. And what this does is it not only creates problems for just quote unquote regular people who are like, oh, I guess that's what being in shape means, or I guess that's what eating healthy means. And then maybe sometimes kind of get dysfunctional about it, right? Like, I guess I have to eat out of containers, or I guess I have to eat this weird thing. But it also is dysfunctional for fitness professionals or professionals in health and fitness and nutrition, because now people are like, oh my God, now I have to live the life that is projected on Instagram. So as a fitness pro, I can never show any realness. Or if they show realness, it's still, I don't know, it's often presented in a way that I find quite icky, which is like, y'all, I've accepted my disgustingness, and I'm now sharing my disgustingness as a way to try to connect with you, but I haven't really unpacked the idea at a deep level that fitness is still about perfection, if that makes sense. It's kind of a hard idea to articulate, but it's like, by saying I accept my imperfections, it's like implicitly saying there's still some kind of perfection that I haven't met. And now I'm, confessing to you. It's almost like confessing to being an alcoholic or something like that, right? It's just, instead of just saying we all have bodies and let's be real about it. Do you understand what I'm saying? I know it's kind of a nuanced point.
It's performative negative self-talk.
That's it. Thank you. Exactly. Yes. It feels like just one other sales point to me, rather than a genuine conversation about like, what are we all doing to live in a body and bodies that are incredibly diverse and varied, and lives that are diverse and varied. Like, how can we just, as fitness professionals or just regular people, help other people feel better, help ourselves feel better, support ourselves on whatever journey we're on? To me, that's what we're supposed to be doing here. But I think that it really, without engaging with real messy, sloppy people, there's a real danger of forming very inaccurate perceptions, whether, again, that's about yourself and what you're supposed to be presenting, or whether that's about like what you subscribe to. And it gets into a weird place. Like, I remember going to some events, as like the nutrition person, and I would have people say to me like, oh, I don't want to eat this in front of you. I'm like, don't make this about me, man. Like, don't make your business my business. But that's the kind of dynamic that then gets created, which I think is really kind of not healthy at all.
The manifestation of that is any fitness professional listening who's ever run into a client at Costco and immediately they're very self-conscious about what's in the cart. It's happened several times, right?
With a face full of cheese samples.
it's a dance, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
And then either I've showed up in my cart, usually what I'm shopping at Costco for is like the pristine good stuff, and it doesn't reflect some of the other shit that gets in there. Or maybe I got some stuff too, right? Like, I think I just was buying Halloween chips, right? And I can't remember, somebody had commented on it, but noticed it. It's like, yeah. And I'm like, no, those are really for the kids. Yeah, sure, of course. You talk in the context of dealing with these tactical operators, the concept of playing, bringing back playfulness talk to me more about that, and getting like this rough and tough stereotypes to play. And then maybe with the everyday person, maybe the person who's grown up, maybe the person who in their mind, childhood's over, they're not supposed to do that stuff anymore. How do you get them back to that?
Yeah, it's actually not that hard to get them back to that because inside almost every tactical, hard ass, again, big tattooed man or woman, inside each one of those is a kid who was, running around with their friends, playing with sticks and, like, trying to stab each other with sticks or whack each other with sticks or, jump across the creek or, build forts out of snow or whatever. Like I like to ask people when I start working with them, well, like what, like let's roll the tape back a little bit and go back to your younger self and what got you interested in this line of work. And generally people will go real misty and they'll be like, oh my God, like when I was 8, I don't know, I saw a firefighter do something and it looked so freaking cool, or I saw search and rescue, or I saw, some movie, and it, like something about whatever they saw or experienced, or I knew somebody, like I don't know, my uncle was such a cool guy and he'd served in wherever. And I just like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. Like something about this field sparked the imagination. And imagination, of course, is like one of the components of play, right? And so then you start to act it out as a kid, or you, I don't know, read about it. And so the origin of these jobs, like no one fantasized about being a banker when they were a kid. I don't know, maybe there's one kid out there who's like compiling their investment portfolio at age 5 or whatever. But like a lot of the grown-up jobs we have, nobody freaking fantasized about those ones. Whereas this line of work, I mean, that's what kids want to be and grow up to be, or experience at some pivotal moment in their life, right? Oh, I was 15, I was kind of a fuck up, and then I had this encounter and it really turned my life around. So there's something about the kernel of what makes people go into this line of work that is fundamentally playful and imaginative. And so that's kind of where I start, because generally where I see clients is like, they, in a way, they've kind of gone down that rabbit hole of like what people do with sleep optimization or diet optimization or workout optimization, which is they are no longer having fun in what they're doing. It's becoming a grind. So, you can think of athletes, for example, they started out playing road hockey, running around like a little kid playing road hockey with your buddies. Then by the time you become a professional hockey player, you hate hockey. Right? Like what happened there in the interim, right? Mm. So by the time they see me, they are kind of like that person. They've been optimizing their sleep so much they hate sleeping. They hate their sport. They hate this. They hate that. And so I try to get them back to that playfulness, because that's where your creativity is, your holistic apprehension of the world, right? Like we think about complete kinetic chains. Complete kinetic chains are found in play, right? You think about like I don't know, like when two dogs meet in the park and they're rolling around and they're, like there's complete kinetic chains, or like when little kids are wrestling and jumping off the couch and that kind of stuff, right? When we play, we use our bodies much more smoothly, much more holistically. We're much better at solving problems. We have a lot more just like energy and vitality. And so I try to get them to look at their work as more playful. And again, it's serious work a lot of the time, literally life and death. But like, let's be real, a lot of the time you're out in the woods with your buddies, running around, like fighting fires or shooting guns or like navigating, or you're doing ropes, or like most of what people do in tactical jobs, people pay to do for fun. Right? So like when that light bulb goes on for them, they're like, oh. And even stuff like training, like let's play with when you're running, how do your feet feel? Remember how fun it felt as a kid to just like run really fast? You didn't even care how far you ran. Oh yeah, like that is fun. And so I get them to try to pick up that more, and they find their perceived energy during training sessions goes way up, their perceived exertion goes down, their indicators improve, so they're running faster. They, have a lot more energy, like just their ability to handle a lot more duration in their workout is way better. They're more creative. They're more relaxed in like tense situations. So a lot of these jobs, like there are tense situations where you need to be cool. like shooting, for example. You can't be flailing when you're shooting, or like doing some kind of, when you're intubating, when you're an EMT and you're intubating someone or giving them an IV. I mean, you can't be, like having gross motor movements, right? You have to be calm. So it keeps them much more calm in environments that would otherwise be quite overwhelming, where there's noise and stuff going on. So it really, like, there's no downside to an attitude of play, as long as, of course, you understand the gravity of the situation. Like, you're not here to just completely fuck around. But now, what was the expression I just heard? Like, understand, like, do it seriously, but don't take it seriously. And I think that's the perfect balance.
Like that. What about the person who's listening going, well, I'm not a tactical operator. My job it wasn't what, as you said, wasn't what I grew up dreaming about playing.
Yeah. And when the best you can do is like crumple up some paper and throw it in the wastebasket. And like, you can kind of do like a life review and say, where have I become a boring adult? And where could I insert tiny bits of playfulness in my life? Like, for example, my partner is a big fan of low grade practical jokes. And by low grade, I mean like harmless and ridiculous. So there was a period of time for several weeks where he was hiding spoons in the house for me to find. Like I'd go to bed and I'd pull the covers back and there'd be like a spoon. And then it got even more elaborate. There'd be spoons like on top of doors that would fall on me, like playful things within a relationship. So we're just like low key pranking each other. There was a rubber snake there for a while that would like appear out of nowhere. There's a lot of googly eyes in our household. So, I mean, that's an example of just injecting tiny little bits of fun into everyday life. But like, look at your life as a whole and kind of ask yourself, where do I have a stick up my ass? And where could I kind of like just unclench a little bit? Like spending time with kids is a perfect one, right? Like I see so many parents at the park standing there with their kids, like on the sidelines. The parents are like rigidly hunched over their phones, probably, anxiously answering email. Like it's a playground. Right? Get on the playground and, whatever your body can do, spend 5 minutes making some sandcastles or, chase your kid around or go down the slides yourself, like whatever it is. There's a new playground just got built near my house, and it's got that sort of rubberized surface, and it's got a mini trampoline in the ground. I am on that trampoline every day. I sneak into the playground at like 7 in the morning and like bounce on the trampoline. So, it's so easy to get sucked into being a grown-up when you're an adult. But there's so many opportunities. Like if you're doing laundry, make sock balls and start whipping them at stuff, right? Like put your laundry basket across the room and start whipping sock balls into it. Like basically, unless you're in a situation like where you're meeting, royalty, or there's some protocol where you have to keep it together and be serious, like look at your life and say, how could this be just a little bit more silly or fun or playful? And where have I lost myself in being an adult? I have a box of crayons behind me. They're not for a kid. They're for me. I just love playing with, I love the smell of crayons. And sometimes when I'm stressed out, I do things with crayons.
Brings you back to a more innocent time in life, right? You made me think of, again, Ozzy over here. When I go upstairs, kind of bedtime, that's often when he wants to get going. So he'll do this game where he will run back and forth the hallway upstairs. He gets really good traction on the carpet, and he wants me to chase him, and then he wants to chase me. So I'll run back and forth with him for a little while. And he's having a grand time, but he's 14, right? So he's getting older, but he still loves it. And it's actually fun. It's a moment of joy. You don't take life too seriously. And yeah, looking for those little things. Something else I find I do is I just pause and just try to be in the moment and positive about some of the joys and gifts that I get. Not too long ago, I got a hot tub for my deck, and it brings me great peace and joy. I love it. It's wonderful. And every time I stand up out of it, when I'm done, I've got to go in. I usually pause for a moment, look up at the stars, but I'm always really happy because I just think like, hey, I've worked very hard for this, but this is a really wonderful point of joy in my life. And I just don't skip over those moments. I linger on them.
Yeah, that's so lovely. And as you were talking, another thing that I thought of is like physical play. Like so many people feel like, oh, well, in order to be a fit person, I have to work out. But like, why are any of us working out? Like the end point of a workout is not the workout, it's to have a physically capable body, right? To whatever degree you can manage it. Well, like go do a fun thing. Go take up rock climbing or kayaking or like, you know, pickleball or whatever you're into. Like go and take up a play thing as, you know, maybe even your main physical activity and exercise, because that's like, you know, going hiking is so much fun and so much more fun than hamstering on the Stairmaster. Now, obviously, we live in Canada. We have to kind of be real about it, right? Like there's times when the weather sucks, but like, can you make your exercise more playful? Can you, you know, when you're a kid, like you invent stupid games and you're like, okay, I can't, oh, it's like the floor is lava stuff, right? Like play games with your physical activity. That's a super low hanging fruit, that one. So whether that's do a fun activity that people would do recreationally, or invent games for your workout. If you already have to run, actually, it was funny because I had a hamstring injury from sprinting many years ago, and it was weird because I couldn't run straight very well, but I could run zigzaggy. So on my runs, I just grabbed a soccer ball and I would just run with the soccer ball, like dribbling the ball on my runs. And honestly, that was the most fun thing ever. So, like, why not? There's no rules, right? As adults, we get free will. So if you want to run with the soccer ball, it's not my business.
Don't take yourself quite so seriously in life.
That's it.
There's a fun quote here. It's a post you put up. You said, "My job is to make you a worse person." Explain that. What's going on there?
Okay, well, so I think a lot of our clients they come to us struggling with their health and their food and their eating and their exercise and their lifestyle habits, precisely because they are wonderful people. And what I mean by that is that they are doing their best in all of these areas of life. They are trying to be a good partner and a good friend and a good child and a good, you know, parent and a good worker and a good this and a good that, good community member, you know, whatever. And they are neglecting their own needs. And for them, it's really difficult to advocate for themselves, to say, you know what, I can't take on another responsibility. No, I'm not going to do this parent teacher thing. I'm not going to, you know, listen to my friend, my messy friend for the 3,000th time, or I'm not going to take this call from my parent that, you know, calls me 5 times a day. Like they really struggle to set boundaries with drains on their time and their energy and their attention. And for them, like it feels like being a bad person to simply say, I'm sorry, I don't have the energy for that. Like not even to say like fuck off, but just to be like, you know what, I don't have capacity for that. So I'm just going to pass on it. So, I mean, we talked briefly about how when you invited me to your conference, I was deep in Crazy Town writing this book. And, you know, I was able to say, look, this sounds amazing. I would love to join you. I have like my bank account of life is currently depleted, and I have to sort of, you know, take care of my own energy. So, but for people who are like this, very caring and wonderful and giving and just trying to be a good person, doing less feels like being a bad person. So they feel guilty. They feel disloyal. They feel like a bad child. Oh my God, I can't say no. Like it's the holidays, you know, and I know that traveling, you know, driving however many hours of kids in the car is like hell. But you know, it's the holidays. Like they just feel terrible setting any kind of boundaries or taking time for themselves. And so it's kind of a joke to say, you know, I'm making you a worse person, because all we're really doing is calibrating you to a healthy person who has healthy boundaries and healthy self-care. But for a lot of people, it feels like being an asshole. So it's a little bit of a joke. But sometimes like you just need to tell people to fuck off, because there are people who, you know, if you were a giver, takers find you. and deplete you and are parasites on you, and and are very good at making you feel guilty for saying, you know what, I need to take care of myself. So we sort of just joke about like, yeah, you need to be a little bit more of an asshole, but you're not really. You're just doing the bare minimum.
This episode is brought to you by Macros First. I've always struggled with nutrition tracking apps, even the slightest hassle or friction, and it breaks my habit. That changed with Macros First. When I tried it, I told my friend, the founder, Jacob, quote, this is, well, let's just call it a certain other app on steroids. It's the easiest app to use, and it has a free barcode scanner, which if you use tracking apps, you know this is a really big deal. I recommend Macros First to all my clients and friends, and even had them sponsor my 2024 conference. Here's an example feature I love: auto-calculate food portions. Let's say you've got 30 grams of protein left for the day, and you're thinking, how much chicken breast do I need to hit that? In other apps, you're left guessing serving sizes, hoping you get close to your 30-gram goal. With Macros First, just tell it the target you want to hit, and it tells you exactly how much to eat. No more macro Tetris. Other apps ask, how much do you eat? Macros First also lets you ask, how much should I eat? And while Macros First's premium version is incredible for any user, the basic version, which is nowhere near basic, is free to use. So you can go to either the Apple Store or Google Play to download. I think underpinning all this is why do we have so much permission to be an asshole to ourselves, to be unkind to ourselves, when we're unwilling to do those sort of things with anybody else, right? And I think for so many people, I think for caregivers, for people who, I think women, perhaps a bit more than men, are indoctrinated in this culturally in their roles in families, but that they're supposed to put themselves last with this stuff. And I think that underpins at least some of this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
This just
Yeah. I think it deploys differently for men and women too. But like, I think, all of us, unpacking this is probably a whole separate podcast, but I think that a lot of us learn to self-abandon pretty early in life because other people abandoned us, right? Like in some way we learn I'm not worth caring for because someone's not caring for me. And like, if you're Generation X listening to this, so I'm 52, and like in the 70s and 80s, we were raised feral. Now there was great elements to that because it was like nobody cared where we were. We were out in the ravines, lighting things on fire, unsupervised, riding our bikes. It was like Stranger Things, right? Like that captured it really, really well. But it wasn't until like several years, like quite recently, that it dawned on me. I was like, we were actually quite neglected. A lot of us had our physical needs met. Hopefully, some of us didn't, but a lot of us did. But the emotional needs were like not. I mean, boomers had no concept of like emotionally replenishing others, right? So like it just dawned on me. I was like, oh my God, we are the products of emotional neglect. And so that was what was modeled to us, which is you are not worth caring for beyond like the bare minimum. And if you need hydration, there's a garden hose outside. Like you can't even come into the sink to get a glass of water. You have to drink from the garden hose outside, but like, at least there's water, right? And so I think that a lot of people grow up in environments where self-abandonment is like the logical conclusion because it was never demonstrated to them that their needs and their preferences and their boundaries were valid. Like you think sometimes, like, for example, let's say you just had dinner and then you tell your mom, like, I'm hungry again. And she's like, no, you're not. You just had dinner. Well, as a kid, you're hungry when you're hungry, right? And so what you just expressed a biological need, and your parents like, no, that's wrong. Or I have to pee again. Oh no, you just went. Well, sorry, I'm a kid, right? Or so I think that, a lot of the time our needs get shut down, or it's not time to eat yet. Well, I'm hungry, right? So we just learn that like taking care of our bodies is like a real afterthought compared to the other things.
This is deep. These
We're
often
getting
turn out.
heavy.
No, this is. I'm hoping everybody's listening, like hanging on the edge of this stuff. You got me thinking, growing up, and like, boy, rural Newfoundland, and I've said this before in different places, but like a lot of the kids that I went to school with, I mean, I think they were preteens when they had, I didn't have most of these things, but they had shotguns, chainsaws, motorbikes. I didn't have any of those things. We definitely had snowmobiles. We're driving to school in the wintertime. But yeah, completely free range. And I mean, some of that freedom ended up getting some of the kids in trouble. I remember there's a cluster of kids that were sniffing gas in their early teens, and that's not particularly good. But yeah, and then of course you grow up in like, you know, Eastern Canada, rural. There's a lot of like Irish Catholic influence and all that sort of stuff. And of course, at the time, it's like, yeah, kids are just ran free. There was no cell phones or social media or what have you. That being said, my parents have said on other formats, they are wonderful. They gave me and my brothers every advantage, cooked amazing meals, got us involved in sports. And like, there's a lot of extra time too. So I was blessed with the most amazing parents in so many ways. So I definitely don't want to paint them in that lens, but you do raise the point, I think, on a broader level. It's like, okay. And the point about feral, absolutely. And I'm a Gen Xer too. So we absolutely grew up feral, different world.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do the productivity thing because this ties in. And you are one of the most prolific producers of fitness industry educational resources. And we're talking way more than just social media. Social media is good, but I mean, you're writing textbooks. The only other person I think rivals you is maybe my friend Brad Dieter, and what he produces with Macros Inc. He's a wild man too. He spoke at my event last year. How do you accomplish this? And I guess part of the answer is the boundary setting, but like your ability to have the personal focus, the energy, the health habits, ultimately what boils down to productivity. And it's not to celebrate productivity and grind, but more how you achieve this balance. Because I do get the impression, maybe that's the outside two-dimensional view, that you have it all together. What's the messy stuff?
Oh, well, I'm glad that's the impression I give to the outside world. I mean, I think what you're seeing, Andrew, is like the culmination of years of practice and input, right? So it's like, imagine I had cultivated skill in a sport of some kind, for the last, let's say, 4 decades. Like, I'd be pretty damn good at it by now, right? And you'd be like, oh, wow, like you're a natural. No, I'm not a natural. I just have been at it for a really long time, making mistakes. And, as someone who has a touch of the old ADHD, a lot of this, like a lot of the time we become counselors or trainers or health professionals to fix something with ourselves. Like, not that it's something is wrong necessarily, but to grapple with things that have confounded us, right? And there's that kind of truism, like if you ever want to know how your therapist is fucked up, like look at their specialty, right? So, a lot of this is born from attempting to address and solve some of my own struggles. Now, I've always been someone who liked to write. It's just something I was almost literally born with, taught myself to read very early. I was not a normal child, right? So there's that. But, I've always been very interested and engaged in the world. And then the habits emerged from necessity. Like, I go to university, I don't do very well. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta get into grad school. Uh-oh, my average sucks because I spent all this time drinking and eating chicken wings and stuff, right? Okay, I need to get into grad school, so I gotta improve. So every leveling up has been trying to solve a very specific problem. And out of that has emerged habits that by now are really rock solid most of the time, but only because they were born of a long struggle and feedback loops, right? Try something, fail, try something, fail, try something, get it on the rails pretty well, and then it falls apart, right? And so like I've built this system around me because I need it. I forget things, I set reminders. So I'm a very aggressive like calendar user, right? So that's, a great habit for productivity. I work at a very natural rhythm, right? Do some work, go out for a walk. Do some work, have some lunch, And so Cal Newport talks about this a lot. Work at a natural pace, right? When it's time to go to bed, that's it, we're done. And so cumulatively, so I'm not like up at 3 a.m. grinding and sticking my face in ice water, whatever the hell people say they're doing. I am working at a very organic, natural pace, but I'm doing it consistently because I always tell my older clients this: as we age, the goal of the game is to stay in the game. So we're not here for heroics. This is not Instagram worthy grind. Grind is also a fantasy, like it's like, let's be real, like you can't keep withdrawing from an empty bank account, right? Like you need to have replenishment. So the grind is like a paradigm that makes no sense to me. But you follow an organic routine, and the world of nature has organic routines, right? Time to produce, time to incubate. Like now we're recording this in the fall, right? And nature is like, okay, time to go to sleep. So that's kind of how I think about it, but it's the consistency and repetition that makes the magic. So for example, when I came out to your conference the first time, what did I do? I found the grocery store. My first, I got to my hotel, found the grocery store, walked to the grocery store, made sure I had, fruit and stuff on hand in my hotel room. That's a habit that I have practiced over years of traveling. So there's really no special gift beyond just being someone who likes to do stuff and has found things that I'm good at doing. But everything after that has just been practicing and practicing and practicing and failing and practicing. That's literally all that it is. But I think our model of productivity is, again, a very young male influencer model. And I've always found it interesting to kind of go back and check in on those guys like 6 months from now or a few years from now, because that's when they're coming out with their tell-all memoir about like, back when you thought I had it all together, I was high on coke or something like that. And you're like, yeah, that tracks. Or like, oh, I had a terrible burnout or, whatever happened to me. So to me, the real win is, what is a sustainable pace? And that's what people should shoot for their productivity. So I have found the pace that for me is like, I can keep chipping away. It's like the zone 2 of life, the zone 2 cardio of life. And a lot of the time that looks like doing less. That's like, okay, it's whatever o'clock, time for an early bed. That's it. We're done here. I don't need a heroic effort.
So you're not Alex Hormozy. And then, by the way, I like Alex's media a fair bit of it. He says some dumb shit sometimes, but with like timing nicotine as a productivity tool, for example, not smoking cigarettes, literally like dosing yourself with nicotine is one of the things he'll sometimes talk about. It's not that, basically, right? The antithesis of that, or David Goggins type stuff, as you mentioned earlier.
Yeah, I mean, nature produces effortlessly, right? How does nature do this? Nature follows the course that it's supposed to be on, right? I mean, I tend to look to biology and nature for a lot of like models of things. And so nature produces effortlessly in a certain way, like there's still cost to a production, but it produces at the right pace. And so that's kind of how I think about it. So I don't need to force it. It's like judo. I don't need to push you onto the floor. If I can just help you get on the floor going in the direction that you're already going in, right? That's how I think about it. And so as much as possible, I try not to force things. I try not to overcomplicate things. And I try to have fun and be playful and enjoy it. Now, my cheat code is also maybe that I do love writing textbooks. That is my weird neurodivergent special interest is writing textbooks. So that gives me a bit of a leg. Yes, very nice. You got the new Menopause Plus.
Molly sent this to me. So Molly Galbraith, a dear friend to us both. Yes, she gifted me her menopause, your guys' menopause course some time ago. And then, so that's the additional textbook. I just got my certificate for the main part of the course in the mail. I still have to find some time to sit down and dig into this thing, but this stuff is excellent work. So let's give that a shout right there, guys.
Mm-hmm.
I also, just laughing, I also have a Alex Hormozy book nearby too. So one of books nearby.
And the title of that book is so interesting because I think part of the challenge is, what do you define as success, right? And that answer is going to be different for everyone. Like, what is a successful human? And I think in North America, we define it as someone who makes a lot of money. That's not my definition of it, right? I'm much more oriented towards intrinsic enjoyment. I'm living in a one-bedroom. I mean, if you could see what's off camera right now, I'm living in a one-bedroom apartment My partner has his leather working bench across the way here. There are like rolls of leather, like tools. It's a whole ass tool bench. Like there's like a mini workshop going on in one corner of my living room. This is the life that I've chosen to live, and what brings me joy and what makes me feel successful as a human is living by the ocean. I'm gesturing, you can't see, but like literally 100 meters away is the ocean. I'm in Vancouver. I can see the ocean. I can see the mountains. I could probably almost hit it with a baseball if my throwing arm was good enough. I live in a beautiful part of the world. I have good relationships. I have great health for someone who's 52. Like, to me, that is success. That is a rich life. I have a lot of laughs. Like I said, my house is full of googly eyes. Right? Like, it doesn't get better than that for me. So I've kind of curated my life around what my definition of success is. And so for people listening, consider like productivity towards what? Like, what's the purpose? What's the larger principle or the purpose? Like, what's your hopeful future that you're trying to get towards? Because if you're just producing for producing, like, that's metastasizing, right? That's cancer, right? Like, you're just like spawning out like in a toxic direction. So it's really worth asking yourself, how do I define success and how do I build my life to support that? And so, for example, long time ago, I decided I'm always going to live somewhere that's walkable, where I can get outside and walk around and be close to things, right? Close to the store or whatever. Somewhere that I can be human powered, right? Whether that's riding my bike or walking. That's immeasurably added to my quality of life. And that's a decision that I made to nurture some aspect of my health. And I think that that's, we tend not to make a lot of life decisions with those criteria in mind. What is going to give me a healthier life? Because it's like, oh, I'm just going to buy a house in the suburbs because it's cheaper. Well, there's other costs to certain kinds of choices, right? So anyway, to circle back to productivity, you have to know what you're producing towards. And I have spent a lot of time and energy and deep thinking to consider what that is for me. And again, you're seeing is the end result of like years, years and years and years of work. Like, I started working in this industry in the late 90s. So, I put my reps in, as have you, right?
You got more tenure than me, but still, to your point, I don't know if it's a brand new book, The Art of Spending Money by Morgan Housel. And a lot of what you just described about the way you curated your life, it's a fantastic book. I think it's probably the best book I've read all year. I just ripped right through it. And anybody listening, it's so much, he gets quite in depth about, why you're pursuing money and how to spend it, like, and what brings you joy, and just getting a little bit clear on that. I can't do it justice, guys. A great book if this is an interesting topic for you. But you also very much alluded to a concept. It's in another book called The Gap and the Gain, Dr. Ben Hardy and Dan Sullivan, I believe, if I remember correctly. But it's a simple concept. It's the gap is the difference between where you want to be and where you are, and being fixated on you're never quite there. Therefore, it's always more. It's always the next thing, versus the gain, which is what you've already accomplished. And it's metaphorically stopping to smell the roses and appreciate how far you've come, where you are right now, be present, versus always being in that wanting of more. And that the horizon is a metaphor, a literal but metaphor of life. We never reach the horizon. The horizon always keeps moving off into the distance away from us. And a lot of people live there and they're never satisfied and they're never at peace.
Mm-hmm. And let me just bring the room down a little bit more, because this for me touches on my current pet peeve with part of our industry, which is the so-called longevity dimension of things. Now, all of us are in favor of living a wonderful, healthy, vibrant life, right? I think we can all get on the same page there. But the discourse around the longevity industry is a fundamental avoidance of the reality of death and mortality and aging and decrepitude, right? And that creates people who are very fearful of their own bodies or what might happen to them, or like, kind of a terror and panic around what's going to happen as I age. And I think that does a real disservice to people because, aging and death is part of life. And, pretending that if we just took the right supplements or got blood transfusions from our teenage child or whatever the hell that guy is doing, like that's bizarre death denying behavior. And I get that none of us necessarily loves to contemplate mortality, but I think that like the ultimate fitness hack or the ultimate health hack is actually paradoxically coming to terms with the fact that we are biological organisms, living biological lives. And I found that for me, I was able to relax so much more into health and fitness and nutrition habits when I stopped trying to use them to stave off something that I feared.
Everybody can find you at Stumptuous, STUMPTUOUS on Instagram. And your media is great, as I said. That's a great place to leave off. But is there anywhere else you want to send people?
Yeah, Instagram's great. I have half-heartedly taken a shot at TikTok. I will say, check out the 1% Better Academy. That's like a little side project I've got. We've just put out a course that's kind of a fun little course, which is basically stealing ideas from the military about how to survive a hostage situation and kind of just using it for daily life. Like it's like a fun take on like, how do you use these performance tricks for like daily life stuff? So yeah, 1% Better Academy. I'll share the link with you. That's another place to find me. And obviously on the Old Person Facebook, Krista Scott-Dixon. I sort of post more like righty, cerebral things there, so you can find things like takes on research studies or deep thoughts in quotation marks. Yeah, so I'm not hard to find. I think there's only one Krista Scott-Dixon in the world. So yeah.
Definitely Facebook, because I was probably digging around at your Facebook more for some top of mind things to ask you for this episode. So it's great. So guys, please go dive in. And if you enjoy this episode, let's pick one call to action. Take it, share it with someone in your world, someone you think needs a good dose of Krista and the topics we discussed today. So thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you guys. Stay tuned for more great episodes.